I tell you, at some point, Brock's just going to cave. We're going to get him wasted, and he's going to say, okay, you know what? You guys are right. There's dead bodies down here, and we have to keep the temperature sub-zero.
Do we have to bring down a 50-gallon barrel with wood in it this winter?
Look, I'll just put it this way. If we're down here doing podcasts in January and it's this cold, I'm going to bring a Tauntaun down here and stuff myself inside it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Rock and Roll, the podcast, featuring Dr. Nick Redbone, Tom Nelson, and me. Today's show is brought to you in part by
Quibi. Whoops, not anymore.
It was a digital startup.
Is it
now it's
dead
a digital
already?
wind down. Done.
Yep.
Wow.
Done.
Nice. $2 billion effort.
Yeah.
Wow. And that was the one where they decided that people wanted to watch their movie in clips. Right?
Yeah, on their phones.
On their phones,
Yep.
right.
Which nobody wanted.
No.
I'll watch. Here's the thing. I'll watch some dumbass try something and fail on YouTube for 12 minutes. I will not watch. I'll watch somebody play a video game on YouTube for 20 minutes. I will not watch a movie in parts on my phone.
No.
I'm not
And
even
apparently
interested.
no one else will either.
Well, that's right. And now the ones that wanted to will no longer have the chance.
And they couldn't even, you couldn't even like use the Google, whatever it's called, the Screen Beam.
Oh, the Chromecast.
No, it's called the Screen Beam.
Okay, good. It's the string beam?
The Screen Beam.
String beam.
Maybe we should stick with Chromecast.
It's the Chromecast. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
and we should introduce our good friend, Brock Johnson.
Oh, that's right. He always says me, but me is Brock. And of course, this is episode 13 of Rock and Roll the podcast. And we are not actually sponsored by anybody. But if you'd like to change that, you drop us a note right here. Did I just hear a fart upstairs?
I hope so.
I swear to God, did you hear something?
I did.
It did sound like a
heard,
fart.
like right after I said it, I heard a.
The general reaction we get. Gastrointestinal problems. Oh, look, it's the podcast.
We are three grown men tasked with running like $1.5 million worth of radio, and we still laugh at farts like 7-year-olds.
Because they're hilarious.
They
Do you
really
remember
are.
what Carlin said? They're S without the mess.
It really is.
Farts.
Yeah. And what isn't to love about that?
And George Carlin.
And George Carlin, may he rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Okay, so episode 13. Let's see. This would be episode 14. This is episode 14 because we're
We
pardon
already
me.
spent one episode making fun of the 12.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We're actually trying to get one ahead, so we're recording 2 pods in 1 week. So that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Today's episode is about. This one was actually suggested by my 15, almost 16-year-old little punk rock kid daughter, who said, "Dad, you got to do something on the 27 Club." And she's not wrong. For those who don't know what the 27 Club is, there's a handful of when I saw a larger list, there were a lot of, I don't know who these people are, but then there's a lot of A-listers, like top of their game, musicians who died at 27. And tragically, they died at 27. And the names are huge names. It was like the 60s all died at the same age. And we'll definitely go into that one. I think the first one, and I wanted to make sure this guy made it in because he's also such a huge influence on rock and roll in general. And there were names before this one, but this is the one that stuck out for me. Robert Johnson, who was the king of the Delta blues. Guys like Keith Richards and Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page and yada yada. I mean, the list goes on of guys who name him as a huge influence. He was the best blues guitar player of his generation, and he was the one that they said made a deal with the devil at the crossroads.
Yep.
He drank poisoned whiskey and died at 27. And I'm cheating on my phone here. He died in 1938.
Wow.
Yeah.
After, I guess he was playing at a roadhouse.
That's right.
And that's where he got a hold of this strychnine-laced whiskey because he was flirting with the roadhouse owner's wife.
And somebody even tried
That'll
to
get you killed.
Yeah,
That'll
that'll get
do
you killed, man.
And somebody tried to take the bottle away from him, and he said, "Nope, it's my bottle. I'll drink it." And he died badly. I mean, it was a painful death. It took days for him to die. It was bad. But once again, and that mystique nobody had put together that it was 27 until 27 started to happen again and again. Robert Johnson is an interesting cat too. There's a great documentary on Netflix, and I'm going to forget the name right now, but it might be The Devil and Robert Johnson or something like that.
I'm not sure.
It's an in-depth look at the fact that Robert Johnson, he was not a great guitar player. When he first kind of started to hang out in the juke joints and whatnot, he wasn't considered great. Matter of fact, some people said, "Oh, great, it's Robert Johnson. Here he comes again." And then he went away for a while. And then when he came back onto the scene, he sounded like it was two guys playing one guitar. He was phenomenal.
Hence the deal with the devil.
Exactly. And the song Crossroads.
Is it? Yeah, I'm looking for clarification on that. But the deal with the devil. What's the deal?
The legend has it that Robert Johnson went to a crossroads somewhere in the American South. One says that it was somewhere near Greenville, Mississippi.
Okay.
He went to the crossroads at midnight, waited for the devil to show up, handed his guitar to the devil. The devil tuned his guitar, handed it back to him, and the trade was, "I'll make you famous. I'll make you the best guitar player in Mississippi in exchange for your soul." And
wow.
and then he had songs like he had Crossroads, which straight up talks about the deal.
Right.
He had a song called "Me and the Devil Blues," which also talks about it. He also had a song called "Hellhounds on My Trail," which is also about it. So it wasn't just other people saying it. Now, he might have just been dealing in his rock starism.
I think he made hay out of that.
Of course, why wouldn't you? If you've got people believing it and you can sell a record, or in his case, get a gig for a solid gig at a juke joint for a week and a half, why wouldn't you run with that? But that may have eventually been also kind of what killed him. I mean, you reap what you sow, and he threw a lot of bad karma out there, and I'm sure somebody said, "All right, well, we'll just send you to hell early then."
Wow.
And yeah, it's a crazy story. It really is. Yeah. And Cream, the Clapton supergroup from the 60s, did their own version of Crossroads.
Yep.
And there was a Ralph Macchio movie based on the legend. Hey, could you do me a favor?
What movie?
Okay.
Where did that come from?
It's called Crossroads. The movie's called Crossroads.
And it stars
Ralph Macchio.
What?
Ralph Macchio. He was the Karate Kid.
I thought you were bullshit.
No. As a matter of fact, can you please? I would like you, if you could. I know I keep giving you video directions. Could you drop in the cover of the VHS cover of Crossroads with Ralph Macchio on the cover?
Yes, right down there. Right
there. It's
This
going to be fan-damn-tastic. Okay.
And maybe why not a picture of what's his name, Pat Morita or whatever.
But he's not in that movie.
So
you can never go wrong with Pat Morita.
Miyagi.
After all, he took over for Al on Happy Days.
Good reference.
Yeah.
Wow, that was
I bet you
deep.
feel young right now, don't you?
I feel especially young.
Really, that's funny because you're dressed like my uncle.
Yeah. He sells cars, I hear. Yeah.
So moving down the list, and there really are famous names that start to happen. Like I said, the whole 60s seem to happen all at once. Let's first of all, we'll talk about kind of in chronological order. 1969, Brian Jones. Now you can talk more about what happened to Brian Jones. Brian Jones was one member of the Rolling Stones when they first kind of happened. Is that right?
He was really, there were no Stones without Brian Jones.
He was the founding.
He was the lead man. He was really the one that put them together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but he just couldn't, live up to the rock and roll lifestyle. And he enjoyed the rock and roll lifestyle, but he was one of those cats that just he couldn't deal with it. He wanted to, but he couldn't. So he had major health issues, including asthma. And then he was partying one night at his place and dove into the pool and drowned. And they attribute it to, alcohol and drugs, and maybe, but even members of the Stones are not real sure. There's a story about a contractor that was there that was working on the house that he owed money to.
That
Brian Jones owed money to, and so they're kind of wondering if maybe that might have been something going on with that, but no one really knows. It's never ever, the case has never been solved. People want to reopen it, but they're just attributing it to death by misadventure.
When he passed away, he had already been booted from the Stones. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Gently let go.
Okay.
How did he get booted?
Well, Mick and Keith and their manager at the time, they just decided that Brian was dead weight. He was a talented dude, but again, his bad habits kind of held the Stones back. And Brian, to his credit, also he wanted to remain the blues purist, which is what the Stones started out as, and he didn't like the musical direction they were going in. He didn't like the Jagger-Richards songwriting combo that was developing, and so he was like, man, I'm going to peace out and do my own thing, and then died.
Yeah, his ego was a little
at
tweaked,
27.
Yeah. Wow. And you look at that period of time because the next three I almost consider the big three of at least the 70s or of the 60s 27 Club. They're all hugely influential and were on the scene for moments. I mean, just barely had a chance to make their blip. Going into the next one chronologically again, Jimi Hendrix. Once again, and I know I take the wheel a lot when we go into guitar players, but you can't. It's impossible to overstate what it was that Hendrix did for the electric guitar. Much like Eddie Van Halen changed everything, it's almost like guitar was in black and white before Jimi Hendrix came along. Everybody, Clapton was king, and everybody had that sort of noodly, bluesy. They'd try to show some fire, but they were limited by the technology. They were limited by imagination. Clapton was the high water mark. Hendrix explodes onto the scene after playing in the military. I mean, because he was in the 101st Airborne. He was a paratrooper.
Wow.
He went to Fort Campbell where my son got his training there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And he would play, in like the bands that the Army would put together to play the clubs.
Yep.
Then he went out on what they called the Chitlin circuit. So he was backing up a lot of the black artists in the South. He went out with the Isley Brothers. He was out with Little Richard for a little bit. And then his own thing happens. Eric Burden from the Animals, I think, is the one that actually was his manager and sort of helped get him his foot in the door. But Hendrix explodes onto the scene with distortion and a wah pedal and his Marshall turned up too loud.
Playing with your teeth.
Playing with his teeth.
Setting your guitar on fire at the Monterey Pop Festival.
Wow. Taking a right-handed Strat, restringing it so that he could flip it over and play it lefty. He did things on the guitar that still to this day are influencing people. The chords he used, the structures he used when he wrote, the things he did with the whammy bar, the things he did with the wah pedal. He did all of these amazing things. He recorded all of these amazing songs in 3 years.
Was it only 3 years?
Jimi Hendrix's solo run was 3 years.
That's insane.
Are you
to leave that kind of mark?
Yeah, his first solo album, or his album with The Experience, Are You Experienced, came out in 1967. He died in 1970.
Wow.
Unreal.
Yeah. You think about bands today that are approaching the 3-year mark, like bands that made it.
Yeah.
That's no time.
No time at all.
Yep.
No time. And he was such a revolutionary thing that even behind the scenes, one of my favorite Hendrix stories ever, as long as we're on Hendrix, is I think it was Monterey, and The Who was there, and Janis Joplin was there. I mean, lots of big names. And of course, Hendrix he's the elephant in the room for every other guitar player. Now, Pete Townsend from The Who, kind of a big ego and kind of a bad attitude, to be honest. I mean, I don't think I'm telling tales. Everybody, that's his reputation.
That's Pete, yep.
So he walked up to Hendrix and he said, well, we're not going on after you. So we'll go on before you and you can close the show. And Jimmy says, well, I'm not going on after you. You're The Who. And Pete pulls a power play. He says, look, we're The Who, and I'm telling you when we're going to go on, and it's not going to be after you. So Hendrix got kind of a funny look on his face, and Janis Joplin was there in the room when it happened. She told the story too. Hendrix backed up. He pulled a chair into the middle of the dressing room. All these people are hanging out. He stands up on the chair, and he starts playing at Pete Townsend, just Hendrixing him, hosing him with this flamethrower Strat. And then he finishes and he said, okay, but I'm not holding anything back.
Wow.
Sure enough, that night he burned his guitar. That night he knocked over his amplifiers. That night he left it all out there. It didn't matter what time he went on. No one left Monterey talking about anything but Jimi goddamn Hendrix. Yeah,
That's right.
he was the man. Townsend and Clapton got together they got together to watch a movie once. They weren't even really friends. Pete Townsend just invites Clapton to this weird French movie. No, it was the other way around. Clapton invited Townsend, and they sat in the theater, and halfway through, Townsend says, or Clapton says, "Have you seen Hendrix? He's ripping off your act. We're all in trouble." Wow. Yeah, he was that guy. And
Yeah, man.
3 years in, he overdosed on a German sleeping pill. They say that he couldn't read the directions because they were in German. That's one excuse. Another one, he might have just gotten too high and he choked
It
on
was,
puke.
I think it was a really powerful barbiturate.
Yeah.
That maybe a half a pill would put a man
And
to sleep for 8 hours. He might have had like 9.
Yeah,
but he's also, according to one of his friends, is one of these guys that's like, oh, drugs?
Yeah, and his tolerance.
He would just, yeah, whatever it is, I don't
Yeah.
know.
And his tolerance was apparently ridiculous, and he might have overdone.
Yeah.
He might have overthought how invincible he really was.
I have told my kids to, when they're having fun, to be careful and don't pull a Hendrix.
Right.
The asphyxiation on the vomit.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, and
It's not a good way to go.
no,
From
and
what I
remember
understand.
to also tell your kids if you have too many drugs, get a hold of good old Dr. Nick Redbone. Okay.
We just lost a guy in hip hop to that. Juice World. He was an up and coming rapper.
Okay.
And it wasn't necessarily like, ooh, drugs, but he was on a private jet flying into, I want to say it was Chicago.
Okay.
And they had a whole bunch of opiates with him. And for some reason, and there was a report of guns being on the plane. Not to distract from
Right.
your story, but so when they land at the airport, there's feds because there's guns
Okay, sure.
that weren't registered at the airport before.
Right.
And they have all these pills, and they know they're going to get in trouble for guns, and so Juice World, to not deal with it, went,
Oh no.
killed him.
Well, yeah, opiates, kids.
Oddly
Don't-
enough, I think he was
no.
27. If not,
Awful.
he was right around 27 somewhere. Anyway.
Tommy John could get away with it in Up and Smoke with weed.
That's right.
Not so
Right.
much with the opiates.
That's
No,
right. No. Even
Or-
Willie
or
Nelson couldn't do
barbiturates,
that.
apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
So next on the list, staying in that same generation, she was born in 43. She died in 1970. And maybe the same amount of time in the game, 3 years, 2 years maybe, Janis Joplin.
Yeah.
Janis Joplin, my mom's claim to fame, her first big concert. My mom saw Janis Joplin.
Really?
What a first show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
no
San
kidding.
Francisco.
Yeah.
Out in the middle
in
of
San Francisco,
Yeah,
no less.
right in the middle of the hippie
yeah.
explosion that was going on.
Wow, cool.
So, Tommy, you probably have a little bit more Janis Joplin knowledge than I do. I mean, I know a great soul singer, came out of Texas, could never be signed today
Yeah.
because she wouldn't fit the pretty mold that the music business wants out of women these days.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm not saying she was unattractive, but she was unattractive.
It was nice.
Oh, very subtle.
such a gentleman.
That was awesome.
Well, you know why I called it? Look, I'm ugly. If I can call other people ugly because I'm ugly. It's okay.
I don't think that works.
Really?
But sure, go. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's all I had. I ran with it.
Yeah, it was nice.
Now, Janis died. I believe she was that an alcohol? Did she?
I think it was a combo.
Okay.
I think it was a combo too. Barbiturates probably. That was the thing. Like in the late '60s and early '70s, it was barbiturates.
Yeah.
Man. But yeah, a big drinker. Loved her Southern Comfort.
Okay, right.
Okay, and like a lot of other people in the 27 Club, just emotionally, I don't know, just depressed, I guess.
Okay.
Estranged from family.
Sure.
That doesn't help. But yeah, big kind of a party animal, and also boyfriend left. Really similar to the Amy Winehouse deal.
Okay.
Very similar.
Who we'll talk about later. Yeah.
Yeah. So you add those all together, and boom.
Yeah.
I guess she went downstairs. No, it wasn't barbiturates. It was H. It was heroin.
Oh,
She
man.
went down to the lobby after shooting up to get a pack of smokes. Came back upstairs, got in the door of her hotel room, started to go out, couldn't hold herself, hit her face on a table, and that's how they found her.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's the fact that drugs took so many of them, and really, as long we're here now, kind of halfway through the list, and I think maybe we should take a look at the fact that 27 was the age. For a minute, think about where you were at 27. Now, at 27, I was a brand new dad. I was, we were living in a rental house, but we had benefits and we had, a brand new baby. I'd been married for just a few years. And I had some stability, but still everything was a challenge. Grown-upping, adulting was tough stuff, man. Trying to handle it emotionally, financially, mentally. So think about 27 on the road in front of thousands of people traveling across the country on an old highway system with nothing but booze and drugs to keep you occupied. And the great thing is all of your friends are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. And that's how you end up with a Janis Joplin or a Britney Spears, who, she's 40, 41 years old, doesn't know how to take care of herself, just completely, because she's lost it. Yeah. And it's because she didn't die. I think she was close at a point.
I think she was too. She did have her moment where she just kind of flipped.
Yeah. The bald, shaving the head. Yeah. There's something about, 27 though, at that age too, pretty much in general, you're still trying to figure out who you are, who you want to be. You're going to live forever.
Yes. Right. I'm glad you
have that
up.
mentality.
The invincibility of youth. Yeah. You think you can handle anything.
You don't think about dying.
You don't think about dying. It's an abstract. It's so far off in your mind. And, well, look, my friends Jefferson Airplane, they're doing the same amount of drugs I am. I'll be fine. Right. Me and Hendrix, we hang out. I'll be fine. Look, the only one that's fine is Willie Nelson. Okay. As long as
it's the truth.
It's the truth. Only Willie Nelson is fine. Nobody else is fine.
But he seemingly pulled it off.
But he's fine.
He's still chugging along.
He's even said, "I'm the canary in the coal mine. If it didn't kill me, it's not going to kill anybody."
I just listened to a cover that he did with the girl from the Ya Ya Ya's. What is it? Under Pressure.
Under Pressure.
Yeah. I listened to it. It's slower. It's different. You can kind of hear Willie is getting up there a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah. But still, it's Willie.
God, I just saw that come across this morning.
Oh, yeah?
And I haven't had a chance to listen to it. But with Willie, I guess live Willie is not okay anymore.
No.
Don't go. He did Willie and the Family or whatever it was for a few years. Yep. And so he had a lot of folks who were really close to him and his family.
Yeah.
Kind of fill in the part. Mm-hmm. But if you see just Willie today.
Yep. Well, I'd like to point this out, though. Seeing Willie today would be better than seeing Janis Joplin today. Willie's fine.
Yeah, Willie's fine.
What?
Willie's fine. What? Way to bring it back around.
Remember, if you'd like to send hate mail, feel free to leave it in the comments. Like and subscribe, both on YouTube and, of course, Spotify. It's okay. So, look, the podcast has to have a bad guy. Today, I'll be the bad guy. It's fine. It's fine.
You're not really the bad guy so much as you're the asshole.
Bad guy, asshole, Up next in our list, in our tragic list of losses, is the third member of that big three, the big 27 clubs from the 60s, Jim Morrison from The Doors. Mm-hmm. Morrison, in my mind, and Morrison was an alcohol thing, I believe. I think it was an alcohol-induced heart attack.
Yeah, he was also playing with the H, I think that by the time he got in the bathtub, it was pretty much the booze. He had to have had a big-time cirrhosis of the liver.
Yeah, well, and I think they actually said that it was an alcohol-caused arrhythmia that finally, because it will weaken the heart muscle if you have a serious alcohol problem.
Sure, yeah.
Morrison was, and I don't think of him, I realize he sang, but I've never thought of Morrison as a singer first. I've always thought of Jim Morrison more as a poet. And I think he thought of himself as a poet as well. He was surrounded by, he had Robbie Krieger and he had the keyboard player,
Ray Manzarek.
Ray Manzarek. So he had guys that could make music around what he did. But ultimately, I think at the end of the day, it was musicians backing up a poet while he did his thing. It was almost like a new version, like beat poetry 2.0.
Yeah.
And taken for just his lyrics, much like Bob Dylan, you can read his songbook or listen to it. You know, it works both ways.
And then you had the whole package too. I mean, a good-looking guy and
Absolutely.
the rock and roll rebel,
Absolutely.
personified. You know, whipping out his wang, at a concert, getting arrested, stuff
Yeah.
like little stuff like that.
Yeah, just little things like taking out his wiener. Could we, at this point, get an Oscar Mayer logo?
Yeah, sure. You want a ding?
Oh, gosh,
Should
yes.
it ding or should it fart?
I want a ding.
A ding.
I want a ding because you'll never see a wiener fart.
In editing, I will have already put one in there, and I've probably made fun of the fart at some point. But let's go ahead and pause for just a moment for the official Oscar Mayer ding. Excellent.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
That's all you need. I mean,
Yeah.
it only needs about a second.
to be
Now-
an Oscar Mayer wiener.
Now, we've seen, I think, I know Tommy and I probably seen the movie. I know you don't watch movies.
No.
Brock doesn't watch movies. Tom, have you seen the Val Kilmer movie, The Doors?
Oh yeah, I own it.
Okay. That movie, I've seen other people talk about how accurate it was, and that there's a lot of fantasy
There's some
elements.
liberty
Yeah, I
taken
mean, and
there,
Oliver
yeah.
Stone directed it, so it's going to be a little out there, but as far as an artsy type flick.
Yeah.
But apparently Val's take on Jim Morrison was pretty bloody accurate,
I
according
loved
to
it.
people that knew Jim Morrison.
Yeah, I read
himself.
that too, and just from listening to the guy and seeing some interviews of Jim, and then watching Val in this movie.
Yeah.
I think he nailed it. He looked like him. He walked like him.
Yeah.
I saved it. You see that?
Nice save. Tommy did not drop
drop
his
my
phone.
phone.
You dropped it at all this episode?
Oh man, we were on a streak
Yeah,
too.
thing.
Damn it, Tom. Damn it.
Great movie though. I highly recommend The Doors.
Oliver Stone, Val Kilmer playing Jim Morrison. And I'm
You
not.
get that on Quibi?
You couldn't watch that. You can't watch anything on Quibi anymore.
Not anymore. That's a Star Trek reference.
Nice job, by the way. What episode?
That was the Doomsday Machine. William Wyndham played. What was his name? What was
Commodore?
the character's name? Oh, Commodore Decker.
Giddy up. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to try and stump Tom Nelson, go ahead and try in the comments. Remember, it has to be the original series of Star Trek. Past that, you'll stump him on everything. Bless his heart, he's wasted as we speak.
Where am I?
Indeed. Where are you? But are you a Doors fan?
Yes.
Okay. I wish I was more of a Doors fan. I like Jim Morrison's lyrics. I like his poetry. There's only so much organ one can take.
There's a lot of
That's what
organ.
she said.
As there was. But you. Yeah. What?
Huh?
Organ? Yeah. Oh
Should we move on or we stay with the Doors? I think we move on.
no!
Because we're not going
I
to top.
was just going to say that there is, and this doesn't help. A lot of organ in the '60s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
bet
a lot of
there
that. A
is.
lot of that organ.
So let's move on then.
Okay.
We're going to move on. But you know what? We're going to stay with drugs because the 60s loved them some drugs. This cat died actually during the year of my birth, 1945 to 1973. Ron Pigpen
Yes.
McKiernan
Yes.
from the Grateful Dead.
Yep.
He was the Dead's first, I don't think he played keyboards. I know he played harmonica, and he was definitely the blues guy in the band. He
Yeah.
wanted the Grateful Dead to be a straight blues band,
Yeah.
which of course, with Jerry and everybody else involved, it was never going to stay
Right.
a blues band. And that was one of the things that kind of bugged Pigpen. It made it harder for him. And, think about all the bands out there that do tours and do dates. Now think about how many dates less they did than the Grateful Dead did every
geez.
year for 40 years.
Perpetual tour.
The Dead was never off the road.
Yeah.
That's why they all made so much money. They didn't have any time to spend it. They were always on the road. And it wore Pigpen out. And if I'm right, I think his was alcohol.
Yes.
I think he drank himself to death, which is, once again, an awful way to go. A sad, sad, sad way to go.
Yeah, he was dead for like 2 days before they
Yeah,
found him.
it was awful.
Yeah.
Where did he die?
I want to say he died at his home.
He did in his apartment in a place overlooking San Francisco Bay.
Okay.
Wow.
I can't remember the name of the town, but
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the area, Cordomid something.
Look at you. Look at you. You almost turned into like Google Maps for a minute.
Google Maps.
I don't know what
But not
I don't know what just happened.
But not Quibi.
He went from Google Maps
to a stroke.
he suddenly turned
and not the good kind.
He turned into Google Cheese. It's just an app. It shows you a
Did you say Google Cheese?
Yeah, it's an app. It shows you a picture of cheese, and it just goes. But you can pick the kind of cheese that you would like to holler at you. Today, I'd like Swiss cheese to make a sad noise at me.
Brought to you by Google.
And of course, the Apple version is iCheese, but that's a whole different thing.
It's a different thing.
Oh boy! Woo! You man, we've killed
Do
rock.
we have any oxygen down here?
If you need to check the color on your monitor, that is red.
It's because
It did get red, man. I was like, whoa. That was funny.
we've only worked together for a little while, so I'm still getting to know you. You're still getting to know me.
Yes,
and
getting to know
in the
you.
middle of the podcast. What's happening?
You know what's going to happen? I'm just going to walk into your office one of these days.
Is this normal?
And speaking of somebody who's known Tommy for a decade plus,
boy.
this is absolutely normal.
Yeah, sorry
Just
to
so
say
you know.
it's true. Yeah.
By Google. Okay, Google, play cheese.
we need to move on.
Do I need to say that we need cheese somewhere in the screen?
Oh, that! Don't worry.
I'd love to see
all
so
right.
much cheese.
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
yeah. It might range.
Yeah. So I'm sure that we lost some of the 27 Club in the 80s, but the next huge name that jumped up on the list.
Podcast in the last
We
3
did lose the
minutes.
podcast.
Yeah, that's where I thought you were going.
If you're still listening, if you're still watching, here we go into the 90s. The guy that some people call the voice of my generation, the disaffected youth of the baby boomer, the children of the baby boomers.
I know where you're going.
Gen X, Kurt Cobain.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Kurt's is so sad on so many levels. He was another guy whose talent for songwriting, and I've even talked about how punky grunge was. The grunge sound, the grunge vibe was very punk rock. But Dave Grohl has said, yeah, we liked all that punk shit, but we also we wanted to write songs because we loved the Beatles.
Yeah.
And Cobain could write on, and I've grown to appreciate him now that I'm older. I wasn't a Nirvana fan when I was supposed to be. I was more into, of those bands, I was more into Soundgarden. I was more into Alice in Chains, the little bit more metal-y side of the grunge sound.
I started listening to rock in like 93-ish or so.
Okay.
Because when music first became a thing, I was like, I lived in Jamestown, North Dakota, and
Right.
so it was like, well, country music, of course. And after a while, I realized that country wasn't my thing, and that's when my buddy Phil turned me on to Green Day.
Okay.
And this was right about the time that Kurt Cobain died. So Kurt Cobain's death was almost like the beginning of where I picked up in rock and roll.
Okay.
Wow.
Gotcha. And he, when he went, I think the saddest part was he had some chemical dependency. He had a heroin habit.
Yeah.
He'd been hospitalized for it once with an overdose. I think he was in Europe when that one happened.
Yeah, but he was broken, too.
He was broken, and that's the part that we need to touch on. And we've talked about mental health on this podcast before. And Kurt, he was very mortal. And I think even without drugs, without alcohol, he was a wounded soul.
Well, if you go back, and I spent a weekend once Googling the interviews with Kurt Cobain on YouTube, not Google Cheese.
Right.
Not a great
or
browser.
Quibi.
Not a great browser.
Right.
And if you watch those interviews that he did, the last few before he died, you see the kindest, saddest person
Yep.
that you have ever seen
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
He was just, he didn't know how to wrap his head around the world.
He didn't know how to rock star. It was too
Right,
big. It was
right.
too. They were the biggest band in the world. And he never asked for that.
Yeah.
He didn't want
Didn't
it.
want it,
He
yeah.
dreaded it, and it happened to him. And you listen to the breadth of what he was creatively, what he did. Things like, what is the song? And see, in mind, I'm not enough of a deep Kurt Cobain aficionado to know the name of the tune. It is, I think it's from Nevermind, where it's just a guitar and his voice in the beginning before the strings come in.
I can hear
I'm
it,
not
but
sure.
I can't
Yeah,
remember the name of it.
he sang that laying on his back in the dark. They brought a microphone down to him because it was the only way to get the tone just the right way.
Wow.
Recorded that album in Sound City, where every other giant record was recorded in the 80s. They did it in the 90s.
And now Dave Grohl owns most of it, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
he owns the board, the original Neve board that came out of that studio. Kurt, I have like a tiny connection to Kurt. The guy that one of my mentors in radio, a man named Sean Michael Lyle, who's now doing news talk in KSL because,
That's where we go to die.
That's where radio DJs go to die. We go to talk radio. Sean knew Kurt when Kurt lived under the bridge.
Wow. Kidding.
Sean brought him a sandwich when he lived under the bridge, and he said he was the nicest, quietest dude, and just wanted to make music. And I said, well, do you think he had to live under the bridge? And he said, well, everybody needs to live under a bridge sometime. Whether or not he wanted to was a different story.
Wow.
Yeah.
wow.
But the way that Sean said it wasn't necessarily that he was broke. It was that he was broken. That he just needed to be there. And then, of course, he hooks up with his wife, Courtney Love, who was poison.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't blame his death on her, but she didn't help. She was more of a junkie than he was.
Yeah, you talk about codependency, man.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, they were like Sid and Nancy for the 90s. It was terrible.
That's a good analogy.
They were destructive to each other. And Kurt ended his own life with a shotgun. And of course, I won't give any credence to this. There are conspiracy theories that somehow Courtney, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And you know what? Shame on you for thinking such a shitty thing in the wake of something that was so awful in itself.
Yeah.
Just so sad. And of all the ones that we've done here, this I think might be the one that is the saddest to me. And I think maybe it's because I'm a father of daughters.
Oh, I know where you're going. She tried to go to rehab,
Amy Winehouse.
but she said
Yeah.
no.
God.
Yep.
Amy Winehouse. And now I was aware of Amy Winehouse. I mean, I was in radio, so
Yeah,
I heard some of what she did. I heard the pop stuff. I heard the stuff that was and I was in CHR, so I heard the
Yeah,
stuff.
but she was another Kurt Cobain.
Yes.
The pop stuff that she did isn't even close to what she was best at.
She only did it to pay the bills.
Yep,
The
yep.
stuff she did, jazz guys, deep, old school, like the heart of the jazz world said she's the next big thing.
Like
she's
Billie Holiday.
They called it. Yeah, she's gonna change the world. Tony Bennett, man, one of the last of the great crooners, did songs with her because he loved her voice. She could write. She could play guitar. She wasn't a bad guitar player even. She could do so much except stop drinking.
Yep.
I've seen drugs and alcohol up close myself. I think all of us have. There are no saints in this room. But of the experiences that I've had and what I've seen in others, I don't know that there's anything more destructive than a slow-moving, long-lasting alcohol dependency.
Yeah.
Watching because it's like the world's saddest, slowest suicide. And if you watch,
And everybody watched it.
Everybody
watched it for so long.
Yep.
There was a website which was awful, but you had to place bets on when Amy Winehouse would die, and there was a prize at the end for whoever.
Yep.
But I mean, that's
Really? Wow.
That's how predicted
Yeah.
her death was. you know?
There's a great documentary. I know this one's on Netflix for sure. It's called Amy, and it's just, you see how young she was and how vibrant she was and how excited she was. And then you see her in the last year when the tabloids were all over her, and she was The Walking Dead. I mean, you could see it in her eyes. She wasn't happy anymore. She was miserable.
Yeah, she didn't want to play to the image that had been created for her.
She was over it.
really isolated,
Yep.
Again, like Janice, her boyfriend wasn't around at the end.
That's
that
right.
boyfriend thing got
That guy
weird.
Pete, somebody from the Libertines, he was a piece of shit too.
Yeah.
He was as trashed as she was, and they were enabling each other. And when and it was like they were trying to take it to a new, weirder, more screwed up level.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was nuts though. I mean, I remember him pulling a syringe of blood and squirting it at somebody. I mean, he was a car crash and had a tenth of the talent.
God, I'm trying to think of his name.
Yeah.
It was all over for about 10 minutes.
Yeah. He and had a fraction of the talent that Amy had.
Yeah. No.
And Amy drank herself. She was trying to get sober, but it just wasn't taking, and I can't decide. Was it the actual alcohol that killed her, or was it a drug she was on trying to get her off alcohol?
I'm not sure.
I think it was a toxic combination.
I think you're right. She was on. Yeah, it was something.
It was one of the Heath Ledger stories.
Yeah, where
she had taken a sleeping pill or a pain pill or something, and then drank on top of it, and just had an anxiety pill, and that was the
and it was too much
fatal cocktail.
We are as musicians, but also as radio guys and as watchers and lovers of music and media, we are blessed with seeing so many of these great talents. We get to hear them before a lot of people hear them. We get to experience them. We get to talk to people that know them. We deal with label guys and whatnot. And so I don't think that we take it any more personally, but when these guys go, sometimes it's people we've met. Sometimes it's people that are friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy isn't a member of the 27 Club, but when Vinnie Paul died from Pantera, man, I'd met Vinnie Paul in Vegas at that convention. Vinnie Paul bought me a drink.
Well, it's our world outside of home, and a lot of times it goes home as well.
Yeah, for sure.
We're always paying attention to music or articles or industry or something, and it just kind of becomes who you are.
For sure.
Yeah.
If there's anything that I can say about the 27 Club, and for the most part, these names that I've mentioned, we're still talking about them today. Yeah. Hugely influential. They brought, for some reason or another, huge gifts to the world, and it was too bright and too hot to last.
Yeah.
Another one who did that, and I meant to look it up before I walked into the podcast today, but I know Avicii was incredibly close.
Yes, I think you're right.
I think he's
Another
the 27 Club.
Super talented cat.
Look what he did to the digital music world.
Yep, agreed.
I mean, the world looked up to him as a digital music god.
Yeah.
And he's the one who brought a lot of that new sound to the pop charts.
Yeah.
And there again, he hated every minute of his popularity.
And he had a bluegrass hit.
Yeah.
He had a bluegrass hit.
Yeah.
He was this electronic guy. So I guess maybe the point of this is love your artists while you get them. You know what? They might make an album you don't like. Listen to it anyway. Support it. If they ever did anything you like, continue, because you don't know how long you're going to get them.
See, and that's what I miss about the way we absorbed records before the internet.
Yeah.
Because and I've talked to a lot of bands about this too, because they're telling a story, and they want you to understand what they're feeling. They want you to feel that emotion. And so in 94 or whatever, you'd go out, you'd buy the cassette, you'd buy the CD, you'd listen to it, and while you'd listen to it, you'd be paging through those notes and
for
reading
sure.
along with the
You
song
bet.
and finding out who. Now it's based on a YouTube single.
It's too easy.
Yeah.
It's
spoon-fed.
It's too easy for us, but
Yeah.
too hard for them to tell a story.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at the bands who have tried to do concept albums in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And how much more of a challenge that would be.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Because people are picking it song by
For
song.
sure.
you know?
For sure. Tom, now I'm going to ask the question, and this is a tough one, but I think it's a cool one. If you could pick any member of the 27 Club to save from the curse, in other words, they get to continue. For for whatever reason, it can be your own selfish reasons. Just because y'all already know my answer and you know why, but I want to hear what you guys think.
Oh, man. Wow.
Now, I'm surprised you're not just jumping right at Brian Jones being the Stones guy you are.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but I think there's a lot of Amy Winehouse that I haven't discovered yet.
That's where I
I think I think I need to be. I've heard enough Amy to know that I really like her, but I don't know everything. I haven't heard everything.
Yep.
And I think if I listened more to her, I would find even more gems.
Sure.
So I'm going to go with Amy.
Okay.
I think she's who would have changed the shape of pop music. Like you look at Kurt Cobain.
Sure.
He changed the shape of rock.
No question.
I think Amy Winehouse was on that same path.
Yeah.
Because what she was doing with jazz, but then with pop at the same time.
Agreed.
People were, in fact, on Hot 100 FM, there's a song that was not a huge hit that I play because it's a perfect fusion of the two. You Know I'm No Good.
Yeah. And it's so good.
So good. Yeah.
It's so good, and she was so good. My answer is, and I know once again, no surprise, it's Hendrix, only because I think Hendrix, what he was doing with the electric guitar, with just a Stratocaster, a wah pedal, and a Marshall. Imagine what he'd be in his 70s now.
Wow.
Imagine what he would have done in the 70s and 80s with the new technology and the new and at that point he would have had his choice. Any musician in the world would have jumped at the chance to jam, to record, to write with Hendrix. So for selfish reasons, guitar player, I would want Hendrix.
That makes sense.
However, you damn near swayed me to the Amy Winehouse, because now all I can think about, I don't want to go upstairs and listen to Hendrix. I want to go listen to some Winehouse before I got to do my noon show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there we go. I mean, that's episode 14. That's the 27 Club. If we missed anybody that you think we should have talked about, well, you can leave it in the comments, but we're not going to go back to it. But please do like and subscribe. And
Again, not the mean guy, not the bad guy, the asshole.
I'm the asshole of the podcast. Cheese, asshole, and Uncle Ty. I'm Dr. Nick. That's Brock. That's Tommy. We are out of here. Peace, love, and rock and roll. Tip your waitress.